Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into the FTC versus Meta trial.
That's right.
Specifically, we're looking closely at Mark Zuckerberg's testimony, focusing on why Meta bought WhatsApp and Instagram.
Yeah, the sources we're drawing on are mainly reports from The Verge covering what he actually said in court.
Okay, so our goal here, our mission, is really to unpack the core arguments. Was this about crushing competition, like the FTC says?
Or was it, as Zuckerberg claims, more about taking these platforms and, making them better, helping them grow?
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. So the big question hanging over this whole thing is that central allegation from the FTC. Did Meta buy these companies just to eliminate rivals?
And Zuckerberg's counter is, no, it was about adapting, about improving them.
Let's start with WhatsApp then. That's always a fascinating one.
Okay, yeah, WhatsApp, $19 billion. I mean, that's still just a massive number.
It really is.
And apparently when he was asked in court if he was still happy about paying that, Zuckerberg actually sort of grinned and said he'd do it again.
Wow. Okay, so the FTC's argument is that Meta, back then Facebook, was getting nervous, right? Nervous about these private messaging apps like WhatsApp maybe becoming the next big social media thing.
Yeah, that they could evolve into full-blown competitors. That's the FTC's line.
Right, like a preemptive strike almost.
Yeah.
But Zuckerberg, he told a different story in his testimony.
Okay.
He admitted he thought about WhatsApp maybe expanding, but he said he concluded it was extremely unlikely.
And why was that? Based on what?
Based on his talks with the co-founders, Jan Koum and Brian Acton. This is where it gets interesting.
Right. Tell me about that.
Well, Zuckerberg described them as having a pretty strong disdain for social media, for advertising, the whole model.
Really?
Disdain.
Yeah, and there's an email shown in court where Zuckerberg apparently called Koum unambitious.
Unambitious.
And he noted WhatsApp was not trying to expand into different things before Meta acquired them.
So his argument is basically, look, these guys weren't trying to be the next Facebook. They weren't competitors in that sense. Exactly. He's positioning it differently. He's saying Meta saw the world shifting towards more private communication.
Okay.
And WhatsApp was key to that shift. He saw it as a really valuable asset for Facebook to kind of navigate where things were going.
It's less about stopping a competitor, more about buying into a new trend.
That's the narrative he presented. And it does make you think if the founders genuinely weren't interested in building a big social ad business.
Then how much of a future competitor were they really going to be in that specific space? It complicates the FTC's argument a bit.
It does. He also mentioned another angle, strategy regarding Apple and Google.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He apparently viewed owning WhatsApp as maybe giving them some leverage in dealing with the app stores.
Ah, interesting. Like distribution power.
Yeah, though he sort of downplayed it a bit, admitted he wasn't sure how much it actually helped in the end.
Okay. But look at what happened after the acquisition. The growth.
Right. Huge growth.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg mentioned an internal prediction back then was maybe 2 billion users by 2024.
And where is it now?
He testified it's close to 3 billion now. Nearly 3 billion.
Wow. And Meta's making money from it too, right? Through ads.
Yeah, apparently about $10 billion a year from those click-to-message ads that send users to businesses on WhatsApp, but also Instagram and Messenger.
So you see those huge numbers, the revenue, the user growth, and it makes Zuckerberg's point seem stronger, doesn't it? That they grew it successfully.
On the surface, yes, it looks like a success story.
Yeah.
But, the counter-argument could be...
What if it had stayed independent?
Exactly. Could it have grown differently?
Yeah.
Maybe offered more diverse features? Could it have challenged Meta in ways we didn't see because it was acquired? That's the sort of thing the FTC wants the court to consider.
Right, the what-if scenario. Okay, let's pivot to Instagram then.
Okay.
Because here, the FTC's argument feels, well, maybe a bit more straightforward. They claim Zuckerberg bought Instagram specifically to neutralize a competitor.
Yeah, and they point to internal emails,
Right.
suggesting that was the motivation. It feels like a more direct competitive threat, visually focused, growing fast.
So the FTC sees it as buy them or they'll beat us, Zuckerberg's version.
Well, again, he pushes back. He testified he actually wasn't worried about Instagram as a serious competitor to Facebook itself.
Until when?
Until after they bought it and it hit 1 billion users, which is quite a threshold.
Okay, that's interesting. So he buys it, then he gets worried. What did he do then?
This is another key point from his testimony. He then apparently directed Instagram to pull back, to reduce how much it relied on Facebook's own systems for driving traffic.
Why would he do that?
His stated reason was a fear that Instagram would start to siphon away engagement from Facebook Core.
Huh. So if you're trying to kill a competitor, why make it less reliant on you? That does seem a bit counterintuitive to the catch and kill idea.
It does muddy the waters a bit, doesn't it? Now, he did mention that the Instagram co-founders, Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger, they weren't exactly thrilled.
Yeah, I remember they left.
Right. He said they didn't react super positively to that directive, and they eventually quit. Although he made a point of saying Systrom stayed longer than people thought he would.
But couldn't the FTC argue that's just spin? Like maybe reducing reliance was a way to control Instagram's growth within the Meta ecosystem, keeping it in its lane.
That's certainly a possible interpretation, yeah. It's about how you frame that decision. Was it fostering independence or controlling the trajectory?
But Zuckerberg also emphasized the benefits Meta brought to Instagram, right?
Absolutely. That was a big part of his defense. He talked about the resources Meta poured in, fighting spam, scaling up the infrastructure.
Which was needed because Instagram was much smaller back then.
Much smaller. He reminded the court it only had about 10 million users when they bought it for $1 billion.
Just 10 million, wow, compared to now.
Over 2 billion now. And Zuckerberg basically said it was extremely unlikely Instagram could have ever gotten that big on its own.
He claimed Meta's resources were essential for that scale.
That's his argument. He said their goal right after buying it was maybe 100 million users. They blew past that.
And Sheryl Sandberg backed that up, didn't she? Wasn't there something about her initial reaction?
Yes, exactly. Her email at the time apparently called the $1 billion price tag way too much.
But she changed her mind.
She testified that, in hindsight, she was very wrong. That admission from a top executive definitely helps Zuckerberg's case that it was a smart, successful investment, not just squashing a rival.
Okay, so if we pull back and look at his whole testimony, he's really painting a picture of these acquisitions as like strategic bets that paid off massively, better than expected even.
Precisely. He's framing Meta not as a monopoly killer, but as a company that saw where communication was heading,
Right.
invested in platforms aligned with those trends, and gave them the fuel they needed to explode in popularity.
So it counters the FTC's catch-and-kill narrative directly.
Exactly. It boils down to that fundamental conflict. Was it anti-competitive suppression, or was it visionary investment and enhancement?
Which really leaves us, and everyone listening, with a big question to ponder, doesn't it?
It does.
When you look at all this Zuckerberg's reasons, the emails, the massive growth afterwards for both WhatsApp and Instagram, what factors do you think are actually the most important for deciding if a tech acquisition like this hurts competition?
Or if it actually helps innovation and ultimately the users.
Yeah. It's definitely not a simple black and white issue, is it? Lots to think about there.